All right, it's my pleasure to introduce Laurel Sacco. She is pursuing a PhD in the Conservation Sciences program in my lab at the University of Minnesota. She is currently working on two collaborative projects. The first one developing field-based LAMP assays to support the rapid detection of 3 harmful microbes. And the second one that you'll hear about now is developing an online interactive tool to build fish health capacity for fish farmers in the north central region of the US. But take it away, Laurel.
All right, thank you for that introduction, Nick. And I want to start out today by first just thanking my co-authors on this project, Ethan Hefner, Nick Phelps, Tom Locke, Myron Kebus, and Matt Smith. And I also want to thank the North Central Regional Aquaculture Center for providing funding for this work. All right, there we go. So the North Central Regional Aquaculture Center, also known as NCRAC, is one of 5 USDA regional aquaculture centers across the US. And its primary purpose is to support the intersection of the research, extension, and industry sides of aquaculture. In 2020, NCRAC had a series of listening sessions to identify what the fish health concerns were for the region. And the general consensus from these sessions was that industry needs practical fish health resources and tools. Oops. And so this prompted the development of a project, or the co-development of the project, with representatives from industry as well as fish health professionals. And one of the overall goals for the project, which we're going to focus on today, was building long-term producer and professional fish health capacity. So when trying to build producer capacity, members of the project team thought it was a good idea to hear from producers and farmers and hear what they identified as their fish health concerns. And so when they reached out to farmers, here are examples of what they heard. Addressing fish health concerns on my farm feels overwhelming. I don't know where to start. There are too many resources. I don't really know where to look, and I don't know which ones to trust. And the practices I do find to follow just are too general and aren't helpful. And what these are really getting at is a need for guidelines, protocols, practices that are practical and useful to farmers to help prevent the introductions or development or spread of diseases on their farms. So in other words, these are calling for a need for accessible best management practices that are relevant to farm conditions. And so this prompted us to fill this need to work on developing a tool that would collect together these best management practices and make them accessible to farmers. Working title for this tool is the Fish Health Navigator. And the overall goal of the tool is to help farmers identify the concerns in their farms and provide resources to inform them how to address them with best management practices. We're aiming to do this for a range of farm conditions across the North Central region. The tool is meant to be broadly applicable, and so it won't be able to get at those super site-specific factors, but we are working to allow for users to tailor the tool to their needs and their farm conditions. We do want to emphasize that this is not meant to be a replacement for a working relationship with a fish health professional or veterinarian, but those professionals may use this tool as a guide for working with farmers. So what we like to do is I'm going to give you a kind of behind the scenes look about how the tool would work, and then I'll show you from the user perspective what the tool might look like. So to give you an overview of the major tool elements, we're going to start out by asking some initial questions about the conditions on the farm. Then we'll go to kind of like the main part of the tool, where we're going to ask guiding questions to identify where best management practices, where fish health concerns are, and where best management practices are most needed. And those guiding questions will be used to generate output about identifying what the fish health concerns are on the farm, saying why it's important to address them, and providing resources on how to implement best management practices. And so for these initial questions, when I say conditions on the farm, I mean, the type of fish being raised, type of aquaculture system being used to raise them, and the water source supplying the farm. And so we have multiple different categories of these, and we'll use these to help tailor the tool to specific farm conditions. So I want to show you how those initial questions will work in tailoring the tool. So we're going to zero in on one category of the type of fish being raised first. And so you can think of salmonids as like the beginning of a series of pathways inside the tool. So the farmer would click salmonids and then would go to the next question related to the type of aquaculture system being used to raise them. And since there are 3 different categories and 3 different options here, there's 3 different potential pathways of information inside the tool. And then when you add in source water supplying the farm, there's again 3 different options here. And so each pond, raceway, recirculating aquaculture system category would have 3 additional potential pathways. So we have 9 potential pathways of information that the tool could follow to help tailor it to particular conditions on the farm. So let's say the farmer would click raceway as their system that they're using to raise the salmonids, then the tool would know all of the pathways under pond and recirculating aquaculture system, those aren't relevant to this farm. And same thing with surface water. So now the tool knows salmonid, raceway, and surface water. Those are the farm conditions. And we recognize not all of these potential pathways are going to be relevant to all potential farm conditions, but this is just to give you an idea. So I want to show you what this looks like with all categories of fish included. So you have 9 different categories of the types of fish being raised across the North Central region. We add in type of aquaculture system used to raise them. Again, branches into 3 pathways from each of these categories. And then when we add in source water, you can see there's lots of potential pathways that this tool could take to help tailor. And I know the text is small, not meant to read it, just to give you an idea. So whenever in the initial question, we picked salmonids, the tool knew, okay, all of these other pathways under other types of fish being raised aren't relevant to this farm. So let's say I'm a fish health professional and I'm working with a farmer and I would really like this farmer to go through and use this tool to help guide our conversations and identify those fish health concerns in their farm. So I might bring them to a landing page like this, where farmer would click start and enter the tool. And then they would be presented with those initial questions. So again, we're going to go with salmonids, farmers raising salmonids. Farmer is using a raceway to raise their salmonids. And the farm is supplied by surface water. Then a farmer would come to a screen like this, where we would have a series of topics related to fish health. And so I mentioned those guiding questions. We are organizing those guiding questions according to these important fish health topics. So first topic was biosecurity. So an example question for this would be, does your farm have a biosecurity plan? Second category is response plans. So does your farm have quarantine protocols for confirmed or suspected infections? Personnel training and education. These are questions related to, are you training your personnel on important things? Questions related to water quality. What kind of water quality metrics do you measure on your farm? Questions related to fish husbandry might be, do you know the optimal water quality conditions for the fish you raise? For fish nutrition, we asked a series of questions many related to feeding practices. And then for fish health and condition, an example question for this would be, are you monitoring your fish daily for signs of poor health? And so one of the nice features of this tool is that rather than having to go through all of these categories and all of these questions at once, farmers can pick and choose the topic that they're most concerned about for their farm. So let's say in this case, the farmer I'm working with is most concerned about water quality on their farm. So they might come to a question like this. This is one of our questions. And the farmer might select, they measure most everything except for water hardness and alkalinity. This is an example of a multiple choice question that the tool might include. Another example question is incoming water treated for microbes? So this is an example of a yes and no question that we would be including in the tool. But because we recognize that there might be some questions where farmers might be uncertain of whether or not something is done or something is relevant to their farm, we are going to include not sures, not necessarily for this question, but for other questions, as well as not applicable, because again, we recognize that because this is meant to be broadly applicable, we're not going to be able to tailor it perfectly for every single type of farm. So in this case, yes, the farmer treats the incoming water for microbes. So from those guiding questions, the tool then generates output. So the output might look something like this, where we have the fish health concerns that were recognized for the farm identified very clearly, and then a list of the recommended best management practices to address the fish health concerns on the farm. And we also include an explanation of importance here. These are kind of the shortened versions of those importance explanations, but we recognize that some people might want to not read a lot, but we recognize that other people might want to read a lot more and get more detailed information. And so we have this expand explanation that'll be a button, and when you click the button for expand explanation, a bigger box appears that has much more information there for the farmer if they want it. And then probably most importantly, the tool includes a series of resources where farmers can look up exactly how to implement those important best management practices. And so for next steps, we're currently working on finalizing the content for this. We're looking at summer to tentatively have a working version of this to test the tool. And in the interest of that, if anyone here is interested in going through the tool and testing it out for us and giving us feedback, that would be wonderful. And feel free to contact either one of us. And then fall 2024, this year, we're looking to deploy the tool. And with that, I will take any questions. Thank you.
Great talk, Laurel. Folks, if you've got questions, feel free to unmute yourself or drop them into the chat. I'll start off with one. Laurel, can you describe the platform that you'll be using to create this tool and what that looks like?
Yeah, so we're going to be using our Shiny, and our Shiny is a pretty cool component of R. So if any of you are familiar with R, you're using R programming language to within the platform for R Shiny. And what R Shiny does is it's good at bringing together all of these different coding formats of like HTML and things like that to piece together important information and then generate it out the way you look and then the order you want and things like that. So it's a good bridge between R and designing a website.
There's a question here in the chat, Laurel. Did you come across any other platforms or systems that have been developed like this for other aquaculture industries?
That's a good question. And no, I don't think we did. I've come across like other online tools. I don't know if our Shiny was used to generate those online tools or not, but I didn't see necessarily anything specific related to aquaculture.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thank you, Laurel.
Thank you.
All right, folks, that's